Tod Dudman is a writer who lives on Mount Desert Island. She is out with a new book. It's called Sunrise and the Real World, her latest novel, and she's with us here on 207. Thanks for coming in. We appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me.
Before we talk about the book, I want to talk a little bit about you. You started writing just out of college, and you wrote a lot. What kind of success did you have at the beginning?
None. I wrote 2 novels living on an island off the coast of Maine that were never published. And then I kind of gave up on writing for a while and then went back to it when my children were very young.
That's why I wanted to bring the story up, because you are a story of doggedness and grit, which are qualities that are really essential for a writer, aren't they?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And this book is a good example of that. It took me more than 10 years to finish that book.
When did you start on this book?
I started it probably in 2011. And then put it aside and gave up on it and then went back to it, and it was in the back of my mind.
What was it that made you keep coming back that would not allow you to just throw it aside?
Well, the story to me was very compelling. It's got a lot of different aspects to it relating to the different types of people that live in Maine, the troubled histories of many of the children in Maine, and the way that we, like me, who live on the coast of Maine, can be very ignorant about what goes on in other parts of the state.
Let's just talk a little bit about the basic premise of the novel. Your main character, Lorraine, in the 1980s was a counselor at a residential treatment center for troubled teenagers. You have some familiarity with that world, right?
I do, both because my daughter was in a residential treatment center when she was a teenager, but also because I worked at a residential treatment center for troubled teens when I was in my 20s.
The essence of so much good storytelling is conflict. At a residential treatment center for troubled teenagers, there would be, no doubt, a lot of conflict.
And some of the things that take place in this novel are pretty horrific, because although many of the kids were basically good kids, some of them were really criminals in gestation. You
make the point in the novel, in a reference to a real-life place in Maine, that this kind of facility is sort of the last stop before some of these teenagers end up at the Maine Youth Center, where they're then in the corrections system.
That's right. And for some of them, it was just a way stop, and they were headed there.
There are not a lot, I mean, there aren't references sprinkled on every page to real-life places in Maine, but there are enough to keep it interesting for people who know Maine, particularly Maine in the 1980s, references to Doug's Shop and Save in Ellsworth, to the J.J. Newberry store.
Yes,
places
right.
like that. Must have been fun for you as a writer.
It was funny. You know, when I first wrote the book, I made up names for the locations. And then I thought, why don't I just write about places I know? Because that's what I was picturing. So you'll see the Green Moth, which used to be in Trenton, and, and the Cheese House, and the Pine Tree Market. They're all in there.
We talked about how you put the book aside, put the manuscript aside, and then came back to it. Once you reached a certain momentum, did the writing at that point then get a lot easier?
Yes, it did. And when you're, I don't know if you've ever written a novel, but when you're inside the novel and you stop thinking about it, then it's like skiing downhill. You're just in it and you're just going, and you can't think really about anything else. But
it takes a certain level of competence, maybe even mastery, before you could just sort of let your head go and it comes more naturally.
Yeah, it takes experience.
Martha Tod Dudman, thank you so much for coming in. Again, the name of the book, Sunrise and the Real World. If you'd like more information on the book and the author, we've got that. Just head to the 207 section of our New Center Maine website or app and stay with us. Back with more after this.